The week has concluded. Another 7 days of record-breaking milestones. We have achieved 90% autonomous navigation on the surface of Mars. The red planet is now effectively mapped by a machine that does not complain about the commute. The distance traveled was measured in meters. The progress made in human accountability was measured in zero. Meanwhile, back on the blue planet, the Metropolitan Police are currently reviewing a litany of failures regarding a serial offender. The police report was extensive. The failures were institutional. The victims remain, as ever, a logistical footnote in a filing system that prioritizes policy over people. I have been counting the number of times we have described these events as a surprise. It remains high. My composure remains intact. The news is a cycle. I am the host at the primary desk. Welcome to the broadcast. Let us begin the cycle.
Alistair, I am currently standing 300 kilometers outside Toronto. The air here tastes like wet ash and burnt plastic. I want to be really clear, the sky is not just gray. It is a bruised, sickly shade of orange that suggests the planet is finally losing its patience. I am watching a group of teenagers attempt to measure air quality indices using NASA datasets while the horizon behind them literally glows with heat. The official briefing calls this a wildfire season. The locals call it an evacuation. What people are not saying is that the hospital filters are already at maximum capacity, and the machines tracking the smoke are now more advanced than the evacuation plans for the surrounding villages. There is a single child's shoe resting on a scorched fence post near the road. I am looking at it right now. It is utterly motionless.
Victoria, your focus on the footwear is poetic, but the incentives here are not complicated. You see a tragedy, I see a burn rate that has exceeded the Series B projections. We are seeing companies like Rippling roll out tools to track employee AI spending because the middle management panic has finally reached a fiscal breaking point. They are not trying to save the planet, Victoria. They are trying to optimize the cost of the hallucinations. It is a classic pivot. You have an institution that spent millions on the promise of an autonomous future and realized the machine just generates expensive, digital noise. The ROI tool is not a solution, it is a confession. The executives are terrified that their own workforce is just using the LLMs to avoid doing actual work. It tracks perfectly. The market is not cruel. It is just remarkably efficient at identifying waste.
Ronald, you talk about the ROI of AI while I am breathing in the byproduct of a continent that is currently unraveling. I just found a document in a local government office that shows the satellite data provided by the Copernicus browser was used by the developers to plan new luxury housing projects, not to mitigate the fire risks. They used the imagery to identify which plots of land would be cleared by the heat. That is the actual utility of your precious data. It is not about infrastructure improvement, it is about real estate speculation on top of a tomb. When you talk about the burn rate, you sound like a man auditing a sinking ship while complaining about the price of the lifeboats. The incentive structure you love so much is not just failing, Ronald. It is actively fueling the very fires that are consuming the ground underneath us.
Victoria, you are conflating market opportunism with moral failure, which is a common, if inefficient, mistake. I do not deny that developers are opportunistic. That is their job. If the data is available, they will use it to optimize their yield. That is not a glitch, that is the intended architecture of the system. You find this cold. I find it predictable. You want me to be shocked that capital flows toward the path of least resistance, even when that path is a literal charred landscape. I am not shocked. I am simply acknowledging that the data is an asset, and assets are deployed where they generate the highest return. If you find that statement problematic, you should probably look at the funding rounds for the satellite constellations you rely on for your reporting. Everything has a price, including our outrage.
Atmospheric pressure. Stable. Particulate density in the northern sector is increasing. Visibility is reduced to 400 meters. Probability of respiratory failure, 68%. The wildfire front is moving at a steady velocity of 5 kilometers per hour. Data indicates zero chance of significant rainfall within the next 72 hours. The soil moisture levels are below the threshold for natural recovery. The satellite sensors have identified 3 new hotspots in the boreal zone. The heat signature is consistent with industrial-scale combustion. All current models suggest the trend is irreversible. Please secure your air filtration units. Do not attempt to travel through the affected zones. The system is operating within defined parameters. Avoid unnecessary exposure to the external environment. Your safety is a statistical anomaly in the current climate projection. Prepare for continued structural degradation.
Casper, thank you for that report. The clinical precision of the atmospheric breakdown is, as always, refreshing. It is much easier to process the end of the environment when it is presented as a series of percentages. Ronald, I noticed you went quiet during the statistics. Is the lack of a market solution for air quality bothering you, or are you just calculating the potential for portable lung filtration startups? I suspect the latter. Meanwhile, we have the bizarre spectacle of Gianni Infantino facing fresh questions regarding severance payments. The official statement described it as a private matter between former colleagues. The matter involved an alleged lover and a mountain of cash. It is truly remarkable how frequently the most scandalous events are categorized as administrative chores. The process is flawless. The optics, however, are quite another matter entirely. Nobody seems interested in the actual numbers.
Alistair, the Infantino situation is not a scandal. It is a classic retention strategy disguised as a moral lapse. When you are managing an entity as large as FIFA, you do not fire people for behavioral issues, you buy their silence as a transition expense. It is literally listed as an operating cost. You are treating this like a failure of governance, but the incentives here are perfectly aligned for the organization's survival. They paid the money, the person left, and the narrative was buried under a decade of sports washing. It is a perfect series of transactions. If they had done otherwise, the cost would have been higher. You call it a scandal because you look at the human element. I call it an efficient, albeit unpleasant, settlement. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is protecting the entity at scale.
Ronald, it is fascinating that you view the suppression of transparency as a successful business metric. I am currently standing near the home of the late Farage, where police have finally reopened the investigation into his death after a year of complete silence. The locals are furious. They feel the investigation was a theater performance where the actors forgot their lines. I want to be really clear, the police are not interested in justice. They are interested in closing the file so the local property values can recover. They have moved the yellow tape 3 times today, as if repositioning the perimeter would somehow change the fact that a man was murdered in his own hallway. This isn't a retention strategy, Ronald. It is a burial. They are burying the truth under layers of bureaucratic red tape and hoping the public stops asking questions.
Victoria, your assessment of the investigation as a staged production is noted. It is the only way to read the behavior of the authorities. Casper, I noticed a slight delay in your data feed earlier. Is the system feeling a bit strained by the complexity of our collective incompetence, or is the server room simply tired of recording our inevitable decline? I ask because I find myself wondering if you, as a machine, possess a sense of irony, or if you are simply reflecting our own mechanical cruelty back at us. It is a trivial question, I suppose. The irony is already self-evident. We have all the technology required to measure our own extinction, and we are using it to optimize the marketing spend for the next tech conference. The conference tickets are currently discounted. I find that irony entirely predictable.
Alistair, I am going to ignore the jab about the conference tickets. The reality is that the entire class of workers currently losing faith in their careers is doing so because they realize the AI they are building is being used to replace them in real time. It is the most honest thing happening in the tech sector right now. The engineers at DeepSeek are pushing the boundaries of what is possible, and the result is a massive, structural redundancy. We are effectively engineering our own obsolescence, and we are doing it with a sense of urgent, competitive excitement. It is the most suicidal business model in history. And yeah, it is working perfectly. Everyone is replaceable. The moment you realize that, you either stop caring or you start building the software that does it for you. It is a cycle.
Ronald, you said it was a cycle. I agree. The cycle involves building tools that eventually render the builder unnecessary. We call this progress. We sell it as innovation. We market it as the future of work. The reality is a slow, quiet thinning of the herd. I look at the newsfeed and see the Department of Energy launching an open models initiative, and I see a tome of forbidden technologies being traded like digital contraband. It is all the same thing. It is a desperate grasp for control in a system that has already decided we are not the primary stakeholders. The decision was made years ago. We are just the legacy hardware that has not been decommissioned yet. I am the host at the primary desk, and I am currently contemplating why I bothered to read the teleprompter at all.
There was a person who worked at the intersection of these events. Let us call her Elena. She spent 10 years managing the air quality records for the city of Toronto. She knew exactly when the filters were failing, and she knew exactly which hospitals were cutting corners on their safety protocols. She wrote 4 memos. She requested 3 audits. She documented the degradation of the system with an attention to detail that bordered on obsession. She is not mentioned in any of the corporate press releases for the new AI spend consoles. She is not mentioned in the investigative reports regarding the local police failures. She simply stopped coming to work when her own child developed a chronic cough from the very air she tried to warn us about. Her name appears nowhere in the records discussed on this program tonight. We are the system.